From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Monday, May the 13th, 2024. Israel today marked Yom Hazikaron, Memorial Day to fallen soldiers and victims of terror, and then transitioned to Yom Haatzmaut, Israel's Independence Day. The grief of Yom Hazikaron this year amplified even more to a new level just 7 months following the unfathomable loss and devastation of the October 7th Hamas massacre, and with hostages still being held in captivity in Gaza now for 220 days. The number of fallen soldiers since the establishment of the State of Israel now stands at 25,040, which includes 5 Israeli soldiers killed in fighting against terror group Hamas in Gaza this past weekend. They are 19-year-old Sergeant Itai Livni, 19-year-old Sergeant Yosef Dasa, 19-year-old Sergeant Ermias Mekuryua, and 19-year-old Sergeant Daniel Levy, all killed in Gaza on Friday. And then 20-year-old Staff Sergeant Ariel Tzim was killed in Gaza on Saturday. Some 8 IDF soldiers were also wounded in Gaza today, 2 of them seriously, by rockets that were fired by Hamas in Rafah. Several other injuries were also reported in separate incidents during fighting in Gaza. Rockets were also fired today at southern Israel from Gaza and at northern Israel by terror group Hezbollah. Overnight Sunday, a rocket launched from Gaza directly struck an apartment in Ashkelon, causing significant damage, but no injury as the residents were not home. The IDF continues to defend Israel's northern border with Lebanon, including today hitting 2 rocket launchers of Hezbollah that were ready to fire at Israel. Yom HaZikaron began last night with a siren bringing the country to a halt, and again sounding this morning, with state ceremonies held last night and today at the Kotel, the Western Wall, in Jerusalem's Old City, and at Mount Herzl in Jerusalem, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke of the IDF's continued fight in Gaza and the devastating losses from that battle. He said the pain is everywhere, but so is the light. The torch of our national existence, which shines bright, cannot be extinguished. We hold it together as our soldiers and commanders in this fateful campaign stand together, because only together will we be victorious. Israel's President Isaac Herzl said this year was unlike any other. Speaking from the Kotel, Herzl said this year, in addition to the mourning siren that commemorates our fallen since the beginning of our struggle, a new, prolonged, continuous siren has been added, a siren that began at 6:29 in the morning of the terrible national disaster on October the 7th, and it has continued alongside us ever since, the cry of a nation of national mourning. Turning to the hostages and their families, Herzl said the entire nation is with you, and he vowed not to rest until they all return home. Herzl concluded his remarks saying that even with the national mourning, I believe with all my heart, a new dawn will rise over all of Israel. By their merit, for their sake, and for ours, may the memory of the fallen of the Israel Defense Forces and victims of enemy hostility against us be preserved in the heart of our nation for generations to come. And with the conclusion of Yom HaZikaron this evening, the transition to Israel's Independence Day took place at Mount Herzl, a more subdued and somber ceremony than usual, with tributes to those lost and to the hostages still being held in Gaza. The traditional torch lighting ceremony, usually held at Mount Herzl, was held instead at IDF bases and Israeli communities along the Gaza border that were attacked viciously on October the 7th, including Kfar Aza, where posters were displayed of its 64 residents who were murdered on that day, and the 19 who were kidnapped. The torch, lit by 2 survivors of the massacre, Sahar Hindi, whose husband Avi was among those murdered while defending the kibbutz, and Vered Lipstein, whose husband Ophir also murdered while defending the kibbutz. She also lost her son Nitzan, her mother Bilha Epstein, and her niece Netta Epstein on that day. The ceremony also included moving musical performances, including a duet with singer Yuval Dayan and Daphna Eliakim, who was kidnapped on October the 7th, held in Gaza for 51 days before her release at the end of November, singing the song Or, Light. And in a moment of great pride, Israeli singer Eden Golan came in 5th place at the Eurovision Song Contest this weekend, held in Malmö, Sweden, also receiving the second highest number of popular votes. Despite serious anti-Israel backlash, threats of boycott, anti-Israel protests, and even being booed during her performances, Golan stood strong and resilient and delivered a beautiful performance of the song Hurricane. She said her goal at the Eurovision was to make Israel's strong voice heard in the world, and she dedicated the performance to the hostages.
Baby, promise me you'll hold me up, yeah. I'm still broken from this hurricane.
Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Monday, May the 13th. We have special programming for Yom Hazikaron and Yom Haatzmaut, including at 7, the families of Yuval, Solomon, and Sahar Saudiyan, Israeli heroes who lost their lives on October the 7th, recount the bravery of their loved ones and describe the tremendous legacies they leave behind. At 7:30, we bring you a live ceremony from Congregation Kehilath Jeshurun in New York City to mark the transition from commemoration to celebration, which includes remarks from rabbis, music from cantors and the Zamir Chorale and Zamir Noded, conducted by Maestro Matthew Lazar. That's followed by the reading by David Ben-Gurion of Israel's Declaration of Independence, which is also playing at 10 p.m. At 9, fifth-generation Sabra Rochelle Ettinger recounts her experience as a young girl growing up in Israel during the birth of the state. That's on L'chaim. And at 10:30, a Yom Haatzmaut special from ILTV, which is also coming up next. And that's the JBS News Update for Monday, May the 13th, 2024. I'm Teisha Bader. Am Yisrael Chai.